This week, I'm thrilled to be joined by Josie Askin. Josie is a habits geek, leadership and high performance coach, and she's an athlete. If you're a weekend warrior, an elite athlete who funds their passion through the corporate world, or somebody wanting to dial in their habits, then this episode is for you. Today, we're talking about sustainable high performance and weaving lessons from the sporting world into the corporate world. We're also talking about how you can dial in those habits to take the effort out of changing things up. Let's get started, shall we? Well, hello, all you beautiful people, and welcome to Project Joyful, the podcast for health-centered leaders. I'm your host, Tracy Tutty, your medical herbalist, neuro-identity evolution practitioner, and high-performance coach. So hey, Project Joyful isn't just about being happy. It's about consciously creating a life you love. It's about remembering how to reconnect with your soul-centered joy. You know, that joy that comes from doing what you love, from living on purpose, and from being in a life that allows you to experience deep joy, moment by moment. It's also about bringing that joy into your workplace and using your skills as a health-centered leader to heal your team. So let's get started, shall we? Well, hello and welcome to Project Joyful, the podcast for health-centered leaders. Today, I'm really excited to be talking with Josie Askin, a fellow coach and Wairarapa resident, so we're both enjoying the sunshine right now. Let me tell you a little bit about Josie before we get started. Josie is a leadership and performance coach. She's a trainer and facilitator. She's a speaker and an athlete, and she's a bit of a habits geek. Something I'm sure many high-performance athletes can resonate with. Welcome, Josie.
Yay! Thank you so much for having me here, Tracy. It's very, very exciting. And you're right, we've been blessed with the most gorgeous sunny day today. So beautiful to see you in bright yellow as well. Such a happy, joyful colour, which is perfect for your podcast.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited for our conversation today because for you guys who don't know, we have the best coffee conversations ever. So I'm really excited to be sharing that with everyone on Project Joyful as well. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I can't wait.
Cool. Okay, so you talk about sustainable high performance and weaving lessons from the sporting world into the business world. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Oh, I love that question because the whole basis of my answer here is actually my whole why for everything I do in terms of the support and the care that I give to my clients. So as you mentioned, I'm an athlete and I'm a long distance runner, and I love running because when I'm out running, I feel joyful, I feel free, I feel strong, I feel independent. It's a powerful feeling. But it hasn't always been that way for me. In fact, it was as a runner, I learned the hard way of what happens when you don't get the balance right between peak performance and rest and recovery.
Interesting.
Yeah. And in my case, what happened is I ended up with a condition called relative energy deficiency in sports, which led to several months on crutches. And
no.
Yeah, to be honest, it was a very dark time of my life. It wasn't much fun at all. But the silver lining to this painful time in my life is there was a catalyst that led to a career change. So prior to setting up Spring Coaching, I spent about 2 decades working in the strategy planning and performance space in the corporate world. So I understand the hustle and the demands and the pressures of trying to balance out home and work life very, very well. And as I was recovering, while I was still on crutches, I noticed parallels between what I went through as an athlete of pushing myself to get ahead, always focusing on the hustle, the drive, doing all the right things to be the best version of myself that I can be, but actually not getting the long-lasting results that I felt that I deserved. And in my case, I ended up on crutches. But what was happening in the workplace, particularly among leaders, is that they were pushing themselves to get ahead, to do all the right thing, to chase that next promotion or whatever the thing is that they were working towards, and they were burning out. And I thought there must be a better way. There must be some way that you can sustain high levels of performance, or your high levels of performance, however you define that, without the drop, the animals at the bottom of the cliff.
And so that's so interesting because it's such an interesting parallel, isn't it? Because athletes are often like, in order to get the results, I need to train more, I need to work harder. And really, it's only, well, probably in the last decade with the research that's coming through for the science of high performance athletes, that they're saying recovery is just as important as the effort that you're putting into it. And it's also relevant in the corporate world as well, where, I'm seeing a lot of leaders who are, for example, avoiding difficult conversations, not because they don't know how to do it, because they don't have the energy to sustain the conversation and the consequences of that conversation. So I think there's a lot that we can learn from both worlds. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. You're so right. I feel like in the business, the corporate world, to be seen as busy is a badge of honor. In
Yeah.
fact, I think if you go up to anybody in the workplace and say, "How are you doing?" it's like the default answer is busy, flat
Yeah.
out, chaotic. And it's almost like a competition in terms of
Yeah.
who is most busy, which is it's just silly.
Yeah.
Therefore, in the sporting world, as you said, in the last, I don't know, decade or so, through the study around progressive overload, we've come to realize, in fact, the real benefits from the training comes from your recovery, your rest days. So there's this idea
Mm,
of pushing a muscle or working the thing that you're wanting to improve, but then allowing yourself time to recover. And it's on the recovery days, that's when the muscle goes stronger, you get fitter, you get faster, not during the training sessions. So
I love
elite
that. The
athletes
metrics and the
train
rest.
hard, but they recover harder than what they train.
That's so interesting. And so, do you have any advice for those weekend warriors and those corporate athletes who are like, I'm training for this triathlon or something that's really prevalent in the Wild Appa, for example? A lot of people are training for that hiking weekend away. How do they balance that when you've got to go to that 9 to 5 job and do those meetings and expend all that energy? Because it costs a lot of energy to be at work,
It
right?
does, it does. So a few things that come to mind. First of all, is to prioritize rest. I think
Mm,
sometimes it can be hard, particularly for females who are used to putting other people's needs ahead of their own,
yeah.
but to actually prioritize rest for themselves, because without rest, they will not be able to perform, whether that be in the workplace or out hiking in our wonderful, beautiful hills and trails. So you
Mm,
need to prioritize it, but it's also about being quite intentful about what it is that you're doing. So if you're looking to perform, if you've got that challenging conversation that you've been putting off, being 100% in that conversation, and then afterwards being 100% focused on recovering from that conversation.
I love
In
that.
terms of how to fit, say, more movement or more exercise into your day so that you have the energy to be a weekend warrior, to go up on those hills and things like that. I'm a strong believer in this idea of every move counts for better health. So
Nice.
previously people thought in order to be fit, you had to like sweat it out for a good 30 minutes. And really, who has time to get changed, go to the gym, work out for 30 minutes, get changed again, come back and go to the workplace? But
Mm,
new studies show that as little as 2 minutes a day of movement, kind of scattered throughout your day, can make significant benefits. So I think, yeah, key concepts here are every move counts for better health. Everything you can do, whether it's walking an email rather than emailing, or taking the flight of stairs rather than the elevator, or I don't know, one of my favorites, go out for a coffee, that
yeah.
quick bit of fresh air to buy a cup of coffee. That all
Yeah.
counts. And then the other idea is the idea of consistency.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are all in and then all out, but if you can just do a little bit each and every day, that adds up over time. So think about consistency over intensity to
I
build a
love that
habit.
it's as low as 2 minutes because that feels entirely doable. Like my body's like, yes, I can do 2 minutes. I think that's amazing. And it's so
Absolutely.
interesting, like, when you're in the workplace and you've got a lot going on, like really
Mm.
stressful, you've got a deadline and things like that. A lot of us, we're tending to sit on our bottoms and not move. The chin is jutted out, we're leaning into the screen and we're like that without moving, often without breathing, definitely without drinking, no time to
Mm.
go to the loo. And we like that for hours and hours on end. So what advice do you have to remind people that to take those 2 minutes when they're in those sorts of situations?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've had clients do lots of different things. So some clients have kind of like sports watches, and they have that little reminder, particularly if it's a Fitbit, to move,
A
every
little
so
buzz.
often. So they rely on that. Yeah, that works a treat. I know of other people that actually schedule appointments into their diaries, but they put someone else's name there. So it looks like it is an appointment with someone else, because a lot of the time when we make an appointment for ourselves, it comes last. Therefore,
Yeah.
if there's a kind of a fictional person, then we're more likely to give it weight. So they'll schedule time throughout their day just to go and have a cup of coffee with Tracy, for example, and that will be them just having an opportunity to stretch their legs. I guess the other beautiful thing is that, if you do make drinking water a regular habit, and that may be, having a favourite drink bottle that you have on your desk that just brings you joy, through to, making fruit teas, or in summer, beautiful luscious fruits which are full of water.
Yeah.
Of course, the more hydrated you are, the more you have to get up to go to the bathroom. So it's almost like a win-win situation.
That's so true. And be that person in the workplace who's known
Yes.
for having the water bottle in the crook of their arm wherever they go. Because that's the other challenge, right? You've got the bottle on the desk and then you go off to the meeting lasts an hour, you haven't got any water with you. So make a habit of having it in the crook of your arm.
Yeah, indeed. I like the one also around, for every cup of coffee you have a glass of water or
Oh,
some
nice.
sort of other liquid.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And what's your favorite way to rest and recover?
Oh, I love that question. So I am quite an active relaxer. So to be honest, I'm one of those people that finds it hard to sit still. So some of my favorite ways to relax is to actually go out for a run. I particularly like running on trails. It is an active thing, but I find that it really clears my head, and it's my thinking time. More kind of gentle relaxation. I like to do yoga and Pilates. I also teach Pilates. And another one that's going to sound a little bit kooky is I love slicing and dicing vegetables, particularly on a Sunday afternoon. It brings
Ooh,
me such
interesting.
joy to slice vegetables. And it has an extra benefit that then it makes my next week so much easier because I've already done lots of meal prep. And so I kind of pot around. Same with kneading bread as well. I find that a beautiful activity. It's just having busy hands, I
Mm.
find quite calming and nourishing.
There's something magical about kneading bread. I don't know,
There
like,
are-
is that like an ancestor thing or memories of making bread with your granny? I don't know, but I find it so relaxing.
I do too.
Yeah, fascinating. And one of the other things that you talk a lot about is the magic of dialing in your habits. Tell me more about that.
Mm. So I'm a big believer that it's the little things that you do every single day that make you who you are.
Mm,
So I'm a big follower of the likes of James Clear, and if you haven't read his book Atomic Habits, I highly recommend it. He talks a
great
little
book.
bit like what I'm talking about now. That's the little
Yeah.
things you do each and every day. Some of the best ways I think to build a habit is to first of all think small. So I find that the smaller the thing is that you're wanting to implement into your life, the easier it is to do it. Because if it's something like, I don't know, go out for a 30-minute run every day, that's a big ask. Where if it's just go out to the letterbox or walk around the block, that feels much more doable. So
Mm.
think small, think something that takes less than 2 minutes to do, and then ideally try to stack it with something you're already doing. So, for example, if you're wanting to introduce a new morning habit, pick something that you're already doing in the morning every single day, like, I don't know, brushing your teeth,
Mm.
and do that thing following that. So, over time, you create this new little routine for yourself, and you can keep doing that as much as possible. And of course, if the habits are small, you find that you actually have time to do them, so it feels doable rather than this massive mountain of that you just can't achieve.
I love that. And building up that habit stack also takes away the need to rely on willpower,
Mm,
making yourself do something. Because if it's just a habit, it becomes automated, something that's talked about in Atomic Habits a
yeah,
lot, right?
indeed.
Yeah, I love that. And so when we're talking about habits, it's interesting because a lot of people are like, oh, I just don't have the motivation to
Mm,
begin my habit. And actually, it's an oxymoron because you don't need the motivation to start the habit. You need the decision to start the habit, create the habit, and then the willpower comes afterwards. The motivation comes afterwards. What do you think about that?
yes, you're completely right, and I often think it's one of the biggest challenges about being an adult versus being a child. When
Yeah,
you're a child, someone tells you what to do, and
yeah,
you do it. But as an adult, we don't like to be told what to do. So for all those people that are waiting to feel like doing something, The challenge is that that moment is never going to come. If it was going to come, it would already have come. And so it's about taking that first step. And again, that's why it's so important that that first step is something small that you can do so that you have that activation energy to keep going. I often think that in order to do something, a goal, for example, I think is where you have to do something different to what you would usually do to reach a desired outcome. And in order for that to happen, you have to have two key ingredients. You have to have a why for doing it. There has to be some reason for doing it. And it has to be a deep why. It has to be personal to you, not something that you've been told that you should do.
Yeah.
So you need to have that why, and you need to have that idea or a plan of how you're actually going to execute it. So what are the steps that you're going to do that? And again, that's why having a habit makes it so easy, because once you've built that habit, that is your how to doing or reaching that goal.
I love that you talk about making the why really personal, because one of the things that I do with clients is around neuro identity evolution. And a lot of that is about letting go of the stuff, the shoulds, the musts, the I get to have to do that kind of thing, and getting really clear about who you are and how you want to feel and what matters to you as to what, instead of what you've been programmed to think or feel, or what society says you should think or feel. And you break through that. It's almost like a seed breaking through the ground, and you become really clear about who you are as a person, and then the habits become something that is more connected with who you are personally. Do you do much in relation to that sort of thing? Tell me more about how you approach
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. I was going to say that process that you go through with your clients sounds so powerful and transformational. It sounds amazing. I'm keen
Oh,
to hear more about that too.
it's life changing.
Yeah. One of the best tools I like to use is the 5 why technique. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Oh yes, I love this. But tell,
Yes,
tell
yeah.
our listeners about it, because
Yeah,
it's
so the 5 why actually comes from I'm going to say the founder of Toyota Motors. And it was originally used to understand root and cause. So what is the problem behind the thing that's happened? And the idea of the 5 why is to pretend that you're a 2-year-old. So I was that kid, and I still am that kid, who is abundantly curious. I always want to understand why. So you can take on that character. So when you think about something, say, for example, I want to be healthier. Well, why do you want to be healthier? So, I don't know, the answer may be so I can keep up with my children rather than running around the sports field. Well, why do you want to keep up with your children? And you keep asking why, and they say you ask why 5 times to get to that true deep meaning of why this thing is so important to you. And that is there to help you work out your deep personal why that's connected to you, not anyone else.
I love that. So you get to that deep personal why, and then what's the next step?
I think the next step for me personally is to religiously remind myself of that whenever the going gets tough. So, for example, if there's something that I'm facing and I know that there's something I should, oughta, coulda, wanna, oughta do, and I
Yeah,
really just can't be bothered,
yeah,
it's connecting to that deep why. It's like, remember, Josie, the reason why you do this is because you want to help other people to avoid the mistakes that you went through. You don't want other people to have that disappointment that you experience. And that is always my driving force. That's the thing that gets me up and going in the morning. So once you have that thing, and you understand it and it is personal and deep to you, it's almost like, please excuse my language here, but it's like a kick in the butt. It gets you going so you can do that thing. I often think that sometimes, we're waiting to be somebody, or waiting for the perfect time, or waiting for something else to happen. But in actual fact, you have to start doing the things that kind of symbolize that person or that future that you want to have in order to achieve that. So it's
yeah.
about the doing first.
I love that, because one of the things that we talk about a lot is, when you're embracing this new identity, your only job in this world is to act as that person before the evidence of being that person shows up in your life.
Mm.
And that can be an act of faith. And I love how it ties so nicely into the work you do with habits.
Yeah, absolutely.
So good. So, Josie, tell me, if people want to get in touch with you or find out more about your work, how can they do that?
Yeah.
Tell our team more about you.
There's so many different ways. And
Yeah.
as you probably can gather, I love chatting to people about this. This is my jam. This is what I'm passionate and geeky about. I could talk for days about habits and behaviour change. Lots of different ways to get in contact with me. I'd recommend people log into my website, www.spring-coaching.com, and from there sign up to my newsletter, because I regularly send out articles, expert blogs. I also share a lot of resources that are science-backed and that I've either test-driven personally myself or they've been successful for my clients. So yes, sign up to my newsletter so you go on my mailing list so you get to hear about all of those things. I'd also recommend checking out my Power of Small Steps course, which is on my website, because there's a lot of advice out there around how to create change or how to do better. This course actually is built around 12 proven powerful habits that are going to make you feel and perform your best. And then connect with me over social media. I'm pretty much on all the major channels. You can find me on Facebook, Spring Coaching. I'm also on LinkedIn and also on Instagram, Spring Coaching Performance. And I post several times a week, always sharing valuable content, but I also give you a little bit of a glimpse behind the scenes so you get to learn a little bit more about me and my life.
Oh, I love it. Your favourite trail to run in the Wairarapa, perhaps, Tracy?
Yeah, and I love talking about food as well. So sometimes there's some conversation there around brunches and my gorgeous Schnauzer Barkley.
Oh, he's so cute.
He is. Very naughty, mischievous, but so cute.
Can never have too much naughtiness in your life, I say.
He brings joy, which is what, of course, your podcast is all about. It's bringing joy.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Josie. It's been an absolute treat talking with you today. And I love your approach to habits. And I'm sure everyone who's listening today is going to get a fabulous amount of value out of our conversation today. Thank you so much for joining us on Project Joyful.
Thank you so much for having me here today, Tracy. It's been wonderful, such a joy and so much fun.
Love it. Sending you guys out there lots of love. Bye for now.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening to today's podcast. Can I ask you a favour? If our conversation spoke to you today, could you please take a moment to leave a 5-star review? Your review will help people discover this podcast, and together we can create a world where there's even more love and more laughter. And if you want to hear more from the Project Joyful podcast, just click the subscribe button. Bye for now.